Hi, so I've got a new release of one of my films, although it's not the film I thought it was, more on that in a minute, arrive. So my film Psychopaths, new DVD release. I had to buy this myself and wait for it to arrive because, no one actually told me about this release. I found it myself. And I waited for it to turn up. I had to wait a while because it was an import from America, and it arrived today. And I've just booted it up to just check what film it is, because it's crazy that the director doesn't even know what film it is, and it is Psychopaths. I know it says that, but there's a long story behind the edit. So yeah, this DVD has some old featurettes I did. They're the old ones I made a long time ago, and a trailer for the Psychopath version. Again, I'm getting onto that, and the film itself. So I was hoping and thought this was going to be Terrorise, because earlier this year I made a film called Terrorise. Well, it had been an ongoing project. I actually had a rough cut finished the end of last year, 2023, beginning of this year, 2024. Right at the beginning of January, I finished a cut and it premiered at Horror on Sea. And after that, there was supposed to be a DVD release, and this was the artwork that was done for that release, and it actually had Terrorise Tortured the Final Cut written on it. And then it did appear on Amazon, the American Amazon.com, and actually the photo on there at this time of recording does say Terrorise, but is listed as Psychopaths. That confused me, because Psychopaths is the previous edit from 2010, 14 years ago. And yeah, and then like there was telltale signs. The runtime on this is the runtime of the Psychopath cut, 77 minutes. It does say color and black and white. Well, Terrorize was black and white. There is a color version. Again, more on that. So Tortured, AK Sex Slave, AK Psychopaths, AK Terrorize, AK Escaped Convicts, tells the story of two escaped criminals, Quaid and Kirk, and they're on the run from the police, and they decide to take a hostage, a female hostage with them, because they think that will help them get out of the country or get away from the authorities, and it goes disastrously wrong when Quaid has sinister intentions, and we basically get into a game of deadly cat and mouse with Carmel, their victim, and with Charles and Doug, the two detectives on their case. It is a real love letter and homage to exploitation cinema that I grew up loving, and I had a lot of influences growing up from the video nasties, and you can see them play out in whatever version you watch of my work. I would put forward Terrorize as the version to watch, but if you've got an interest in indie filmmaking and editing, then it is actually quite interesting to see the different places I was at on the different edits, and the time, the period, the influences, what's going on. So that's a little case study in itself. So basically, the long story is, if you follow my work or you know my film Tortured, in 2007 I shot a feature film called Tortured, and it had an AKA name as Sex Slave. The AKA was purely a gimmick because Tortured was a throwback to grindhouse exploitation films, where in Europe, the UK, America, the same film was known under different titles. Famously, like Zombie Flesh Eaters in the UK is Zombie 2 in America, and things like that. So I kind of just AKA'd it as a bit of a joke. So with Tortured, aka Sex Slave, that had its own set of problems. So I finished filming and editing that in 2008, and started to seek distribution with it. And I had to do a slight edit because a distributor felt the dialogue was a bit graphic, and the dialogue, honestly, and stuff. And so there was a slightly trimmed version, but that kind of got buried. Tortured AK Sex Slave is the full version, and it did come with a fake trailer to Women Prisoners of SS Camp from Hell. I actually did turn that into a 10-minute short, but it was a kind of fake trailer, a throwback to the Nazi sexploitation subgenre of the video nasty era. It was done to create this whole video nasty style homage throwback I was doing with Tortured, and so that did get released on DVD and stuff, and that was the first real version. And then And then there is a version called Escape Convicts, and that really is that film, but really cut down. And that was to initially get it onto Amazon Video, because Amazon Video were being really strict and funny about content. So Escape Convicts was that version, and literally a very tame edited version. And in 2010, I embarked on tweaking Tortured. So a few years had gone by, and I had kind of had a lot of feedback, had a lot of thinking, and Tortured, I did achieve what I wanted, but I think it did go over the audience's head a little bit, or some audiences, because I was putting a lot in there. It was a mixed genre film, which I've done a lot, and it always causes me problems with distribution. And there was a zombie element to that film, as well as like a rape and revenge element. And it was like I Spit on Your Grave meets Dawn of the Dead, which was a quote used on the cover. So I actually thought, you know what? There is actually a good thriller in there if I take the zombie element out and kind of remove that sort of horror aspect and concentrate on the more crime drama side of it. So I embarked on some more filming and kind of reshoots. I got original cast back and expanded a storyline with two detectives, Doug Hanson and Charles Hess. I took all the zombie element out and just concentrated more on the crime drama, and it kind of got reworked, and it is a longer, more epic, better film, but it was a product of its time. In 2010 was when there was still this grindhouse exploitation resurgence going on, and people were liking the nostalgic feel. So I graded the film in quite a trashy way, so it looked like an old 70s film where the negative hadn't been treated well and full of scratches and blemishes. I faked all that in post, and it had that style. I did some crazy cuts, crazy grade, and you know what, it was a fun, crazy film, and it was a very successful film at the time for me. It did get released on DVD and all kinds of places, and it was probably one of my most popular films, which is actually turns out to be this film again released. But years went on, and it bothered me. Over the years, I actually thought, do you know what? It was an epic film. I put a lot of money and time into that. It was a film I was quite known for, and I made some silly editing mistakes on that. You know, I was caught up in the moment with what was going on currently in indie film. I was a big fan of video nasties. I still am, but I was younger and I was really into my video nasties, exploitation and grindhouse, and there was a lot of that going on into the film. But when I stood back, I'm like, do you know what? If I was to start from scratch, get all the rushes, revisit it and rebuild that film how it should have been, like properly edited, with all my, you know, more experience in filmmaking, the knowledge I'd built, a lot of time to reflect on it, I could make the film I always wanted to make and what it should have been. And then Terrorise was born. I spent a lot of time on the side of other projects putting this together. I made it black and white, which was a controversial move because distributors do not like modern films in black and white. There is a colour version as well. I did actually shoot the film in colour, obviously, and I graded it black and white for my preferred version, which is what premiered at Horror on Sea, and which is what I thought was getting released on this. So I started submitting the black and white version, and I did have a distributor kind of tell me off that, you know, a word of advice, don't do black and white. Yeah, I get that. But, you know, I was making a personal film as well as a film for an audience, and the black and white suited it. There'd been reshoots, there had been footage unarchived, and you know what, the black and white did help it merge together, but also it fitted it. It was a very dark crime, like a bit of a noir nod in places. So I thought it suited it, and I liked it. It brought it more to life, and it made it more serious, because some of the shoots, I was serious shooting it, but the film had a kind of madness to it, and I was trying to tame it down a little bit, as much as it could be in that film. And so there was reason for it, but I did have a colour version, which I also stated, but I struggled to find distribution with it because it is a niche audience film. There's a lot of swearing, it deals with controversial and taboo subjects, and it is a bit niche in a way, and it is very independent. But I was excited to find a release for it, a physical media release. I mean, if you want to see Terrorise, the black and white definitive cut, in the UK it's on Amazon Video, on Prime, to see if you're a Prime member for free or buy and rent. Hopefully it will find its way onto physical media. I thought I'd crack that. But there is a distributor out there that has released a lot of my films on a box set, and they seem to think that they own Psychopaths and I can't do anything with Terrorise because it's the same film. It is not the same film. Okay, so I wrote Tortured, aka Psychopaths, aka Terrorise. I directed it, I produced it, I edited it. I'm even in it as Charles Hess. I know every frame of that film and I know what I did on it. Terrorise is not Tortured, Terrorise is not Psychopaths. Yes, I used the footage, yes, it's a re-edit, but do you know what? It's a different film with a different punch and a different impact. And Tortured and Terrorise are completely different scales. There's a whole subplot missing, there's a whole zombie subplot that's not in Terrorise, it's in Tortured. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Terrorise is its own film. It's very different. It is regraded, it is rescored, it is edited from scratch. It's got unseen material, different takes, alternate footage, yada yada yada. It is just a completely different film. I totally disagree that Terrorise is Psychopaths, and I think it's pretty disgusting that I'm getting ripped off by distribution. But you know, I'm an indie filmmaker, us indie filmmakers are used to getting ripped off, but it is a absolute joke that it seems, I can only speculate because no one's actually reached out to me, that this original release of Terrorise has now become Psychopaths because of interference of third-party distributors that really have no place in Terrorise. Terrorise is its own product that should be released. This is quite a pointless release, if I'm honest, because this film has been released no end of times on no end of formats, and you know, if you've wanted to have seen this, you probably have by now. I like people to see my film. Psychopaths is not the version I stand by, Terrorise is. This is a fun, old, almost immature edit, but you know, it's trashy and fun, but it's absolutely not a patch on Terrorise, and I am very gutted that it's not Terrorise on this disc. And to be honest, the encode on this is pretty crap. I booted this up just to check what actual film is on there, because it's madness that the filmmaker doesn't know what film his film is playing on the disc. And I wasn't very impressed at the encode at all. I don't know where the masters come from. I sent masters over, but it looks like they've been passed from pillar to post, and God knows how it's been encoded. So all this stuff's been available before. It's an old film, it's 14 years old. It's a bit of a pointless release, to be honest. I quite like the artwork. I thought this was the artwork for Terrorise, which it suited. I mean, if it was black and white, but you know, even if they use a colour version, but you know, it's a bit mad and disappointing. So if you want to see Terrorise and you're in the UK, head to Amazon. It is on Vimeo worldwide as well. I am a fan of physical media. I collect physical media. I love physical media, and I really strive to get my films on physical media. That is becoming harder and harder. As I say, I won't ever give up, but I have had a bit of a war of distributors this year. Quite an upsetting one, actually. Literally days before my 40th birthday, I was getting abusive messages and threats, and even messages on Facebook Messenger with legal jargon on Facebook Messenger. What a place to send that. That's real professional, that. I am pretty disappointed and upset with a lot of independent film distributors at the moment, and I've stood by them over the years. I understand distribution. I made a whole documentary, Vipco, The Untold Story, about distribution, and you know what, that opened a lot up to me in regards of real insight into distribution and money, and I was like, you know what, I understand some of the hardships, but you know, what's happened to me this year is pretty bad, actually. I'm pretty disgusted and upset by it, and it's made me very weary of what I do with my work moving forward. But I won't be defeated. I will carry on, because I am editing on a few features at the moment. I have got a feature called Existence that I've been shooting in the background, and very different, very art house, very niche. Probably going to be very hard for me to release, but even if it's digital, it will find a way. But you know, Psychopaths is available on a box set. The Blu-ray box set of my films out there, Visions of Filth set. You know, I'm not really going to promote that too much, because that's been quite a I was excited, and again, as always, the excitement turns into frustration, which is a shame because, you know, being so passionate about film and film being my life and collecting film, the most exciting thing in the world is your own film arriving on physical media. But amazingly, my excitement turned to anger and frustration when I realised that it's a different cut of the film than what I thought. Thanks for listening to my rant. I don't like ranting on here too much. I do want to get back to doing more happy videos about films, and I have a lot more content planned in regards of reviewing and talking film, and also new trailers dropping soon as well, so I'm going to carry on. But as I say, can I recommend it? My own film. If you haven't seen Psychopaths and you want to, it's a cool version to pick up because it has got extras on. It has got it's got some good stuff there. As I say, it's quite old archival stuff, but it gives you a bit of an insight into the making of Psychopaths. And thanks for the support. It's been really cool. There is still a lot of digital viewing going on, and you know, if you're into digital viewing, which I do watch a lot in the background while I'm editing, I have a lot of subscriptions and digital viewing going on, then yeah, Terrorise is quite easily available on digital platforms. Thanks for listening. See you soon.